Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome. This is part 2 of chapter 6 on memory. This happens to be the first chapter in unit 5. Let's get started. So this is what I do in class. You have a sheet of paper, you would have it, I would read you the instructions. So the instructions say, spend 3 to 5 seconds reading each of the following sentences and read through the list only once. As soon as you are finished, cover the list and write down as many of the sentences as you remember. You need not write "can be used," which is in every single one of these sentences, each time. Please begin now. So you would do that, you would look, you would read through all of these, and then you would write them down, as many of them you could possibly think about, and write them all down. Okay? Now, this is all precursor into what I want you to do. So retrieval is huge. Retrieval is memory. I mean, you can put something into long-term memory, but if you can never get it out, is it a memory? Maybe. Maybe something can jar it out, or you can be hypnotized and bring it out, or whatever. But retrieval is a part of the process of memory. So the process of accessing stored information. So there's a vast difference between what is stored and what we can actually access. I think, again, I want to make this clear to you. You have forgotten more things in your life than you have remembered, which is amazing. So, retrieval cue is a clue, a prompt, or hint that helps trigger recall of any given piece of information shared in long-term memory. So associative hooks to reel the information stored in your brain. And the more associative hooks you have, the quicker you can drag that back out, right? So, if you make it relevant to yourself, or if you create a mnemonic or whatever it is, that's an associative hook. So boom, associative hook, pull it out. All right, cool. Now, you have a couple of different associative hooks, it's coming out a whole lot faster. Retrieval cue failure, the inability to recall long-term memories because of inadequate or missing retrieval cues. We've all experienced this before. It is the tip of the tongue experience, TOT. So a memory phenomenon that involves the sensation of knowing that specific information is stored in long-term memory, but being temporarily unable to retrieve it. Retrieval is not an all or nothing process. I mean, you've probably been in a position before where you're like, what is his name? What is his name? And you actually know a piece of it. You know that it starts with an L. Okay? And then you're like, you can't get the rest of it out of your brain. It's on the tip of your tongue. I know you've experienced it before. So, this right here is just a retrieval cue for all the sentences that you previously could have possibly written down. Right? So, flashlight, sheet, rat, or rock. CD, boat, dime, wine bottle, all that kind of stuff. Those would all help you remember the sentences that we looked at just a second ago. And again, in class, you'd have a sheet of paper and we'd mess around with this a little bit. All right, retrieval, continued. We got Bad Luck Brian up here. So recall. This is pretty difficult to do. It's called free recall, possibly, but just to drag it out without anything, with no clue, with no prompt, with nothing jarred this out of your mind. You're just trying to recall this information. So, a test of long-term memory that involves retrieving information without the aid of retrieval cues. This is also called free recall. So this could be fill in the blank, even though I think the context around the blank would probably help you, and that would actually end up being a cued recall. But that's what we'll remember it by. So cued recall is a test of long-term memory that involves remembering an item of information in response to a retrieval cue. So fill in the blank with a word bank. It gets easier. But the easiest is multiple choice, because it's just recognition. All you have to do is recognize the right answer. This is 100 questions on your AP exam. All you have to do is recognize the right answer. They give you the question, they give you the answer, you just have to recognize the right one. That is the easiest type of recall out there, all right, or retrieval. Then we have the serial position effect, and that's the tendency to remember items at the beginning and the end of a list better than the items in the middle. So the primacy effect That's the beginning of the list. The recency effect is the last items in the list. And serial recall is just remembering things in order. Now, this could be important in everyday life. You could say, you know, I need to go here, 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 and here. And if you miss one of those spots because you didn't remember the order or whatever, then, you know, it's not going to make sense to go back to that spot because you're already super far away from it, you know, if you're a delivery driver or something like that. But remembering a list in the original order. Directions, phone numbers, speeches. You know, if you have to give a speech, don't memorize word for word. It's topic for topic. That's what you should memorize. You should just know the topics, and then hopefully you're prepared enough and you wrote the paper or whatever it was, that after just seeing or remembering the topics, and you probably create a mnemonic for that, that's whenever you could really just flow through the speech. That's how the great orators used to do their thing in ancient Greece. So, All right, the encoding specificity principle. So we've already seen one of these terms. But the encoding specificity principle, when the conditions of information retrieval are similar to the conditions of information encoding, retrieval is more likely to be successful. And those conditions can be based on place, mood, you know, maybe smell, anything like that. That we're talking about, you know, all right, are the conditions the same when I learned it? Okay, if they are, then I will have a better chance at retrieving that information. So as a general rule, the more closely retrieval cues match the original learning conditions, the more likely it is that retrieval will occur. The context effect, we've already seen this in one of our free responses. The tendency to recover information more easily when the retrieval occurs in the same setting as the original learning of the information. Learning information in this classroom is more easily retrieved in this classroom because you encoded it here too. Now that might not be true because you could be learning this at home. So where are you going to have your best scores in the AP exam? Wherever you learned AP Psych. Your scores will be better in that place. We're not going to take the test in that place. All right? As of right now, we're taking it in the auxiliary gym, and it is going to be a whole lot different. And you haven't even thought about any schoolwork in that gym. So it doesn't quite make sense. But that's the only space that's going to house 150 AP Psych students. Mood congruence, an encoding specificity phenomenon in which a given mood tends to evoke memories that are consistent with that mood. So a specific emotional state can act as a retrieval cue that evokes memories of events involving the same emotion. If you have a positive emotional state, you'll probably have positive memories and actions. Negative emotional state, negative memories and actions. That's like when you go through a breakup, and you could be driving down the road and all of a sudden Neo comes on, so sick of love song. Why can't I turn off the radio? Why can't I turn off the radio whenever I'm sad and sad songs are playing? Because mood congruence. Okay? This is an interesting thing to me right here, and it's just talking about different moods and the cycle of them. So let's just say that we're in a pleasant mood, okay? And just watch us as we go around here. So pleasant mood, all right. Then we're content, serene, relaxed, calm, and then the deactivation of our bodies. Okay, we hit the parasympathetic nervous system and we're completely deactivated. Then we get to fatigue and bored and depressed and sad, and then all of a sudden we get into the unpleasant mood and we're upset because we're in it, all right, and then stressed and then nervous and then tense, and then all of a sudden our body activates again. We get into the sympathetic nervous system, all right, and then we're alert, excited, elated, happy, and back to pleasant. It's a weird cycle. And your body, okay, is really controlling a whole lot of that. Not necessarily, I mean, outside factors are probably guiding it in certain directions, but there is an ebb and flow, a cycle to mood. All right, flashbulb memory. The recall of very specific images or details surrounding a vivid, rare, or significant personal event. Details may or may not be accurate. So this is characterized as being distinct, unique, unusual, or different, and super vivid, right? Do they literally capture specific details like a photograph or video would? Are they unaffected by the passage of time? Memories are affected by the passage of time. If you do not use a memory, it will decay. It's a neuron. Use it or lose it. Okay? If you're not practicing it or having that memory come up over and over and over again, then guess what? It will disappear. You know, again, that saying, time heals all, is so true. Because you literally won't remember it if you keep on pushing it out, or you just, you come to closure with it, or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden years passed and you haven't thought about that at all. And it's gone. All right, so the example of a flashbulb memory is kind of easy to do, especially for people of my generation. So I was 17 years old when 9/11 happened. So on September 12th, 2001, psychologists Jennifer Taleco and David Rubin had Duke University students complete questionnaires about the terrorist attacks in the United States that had occurred on the previous day. The students were asked such questions as, where were you when you first heard the news? Were there others present, and if so, who? What were you doing immediately before you first heard the news? And then for comparison, the students also described some ordinary, everyday event that had occurred in their lives at about the same time, such as attending a sporting event or a party. Students were randomly assigned to a follow-up session either 1 week, 6 weeks, or 32 weeks later. At the follow-up sessions, they were asked to describe their memories of the ordinary event as well as their memories of the 9/11 attacks. They were also asked to evaluate the accuracy and vividness of their memories. Then the researchers compared these accounts to the reports on September 12th. All of the students were tested again in late August 2002, almost a full year after the attacks. Both the flashbulb and the everyday memories gradually decayed over time. The number of consistent details decreased and the number of inconsistent details increased. However, when the students rated the memory's vividness, their ability to recall the memory, and their belief in the memory's accuracy, only the ratings for the ordinary memory declined. That means that they believed that the memory of 9/11 was more vivid and more accurate, even though it was not. Despite having the same level of inconsistencies as the ordinary memories, the students perceived their flashbulb memories of 9/11 as being more vivid and accurate. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I could rattle off what I ate that day. I could tell you where I was sitting. I could tell you who was around me. I could tell you who was my teacher in that class. It was physics class. I was at Hoggard. The teacher was David Taylor. He was on his phone with what I remember as being his twin brother who lived in Manhattan. He couldn't get a hold of him. I was calling him, and he was on the verge of tears. It looked almost fake to us. I mean, it was on TV. I mean, somebody knocked on the door. I think it was Coach Queen. Knocked on the door, comes in and says, "Turn on the TV. One of the towers has just been hit by a plane." So boom, we see that, it's smoking. And then all of a sudden we get to watch the second plane hit, live, in school. And then we get sent home. I take my buddy Vinny back to my house. We get there probably, I don't know, 10:30-ish, I'm guessing. And building 1 falls. Building 2 falls. Then I make 40 bagel bites for me and Vinny. Are those real memories? Have they decayed? Have they changed over time? I don't know. I think I remember it vividly, but I'm not quite sure. So here's some examples of flashbulb memories that people would have. So, Pearl Harbor, JFK assassination, just any type of sporting event, right? Do you believe in miracles? Lake Placid, whenever the United States beat Russia. Any assassinations of any type, MLK. So, all right, forgetting. Number one skill of a human. Well, maybe tied for number one. I mean, we're really good at seeing and using our visual processing, but gosh, we're good at forgetting, which is a good thing. Imagine if you remembered everything. Would it be a blessing or would it be a curse? We'll end up going over a person who cannot forget anything, and she has an ever-present feeling of the past and a feeling of the present. And her husband passed away 10 years ago, and it always feels like he just passed away. You imagine that? It'd be terrible. So, forgetting. The inability to recall information that was previously available. This guy, Hermann Ebbinghaus, is a German psychologist who originated the scientific study of forgetting. He plotted the first forgetting curve right here, which describes the basic pattern of forgetting learned information over time. His research involved himself, so a little weird, but and the question of how much information was forgotten over different periods of time. So he studied nonsense syllables, which makes sense to us because if they had any meaning at all, it would increase the ability to remember them. So these are some examples, okay? So he found that information is rapidly forgotten soon after we learn it. The amount of forgetting eventually levels off. Look at this. So retention rate over here, right? Immediately after learning a series of nonsense syllables, he can regurgitate that information perfectly at 100%. 20 minutes pass, 58%. 1 hour, 44. 9 hours, 36. 1 day, 33%. 2 days, 28%. 6 days, 25%. And 31 days is at 21%. But what can we see in this curve? That immediately it drops. But then it just levels off. So if you can get, if you can keep that information in your head for 1 day, you'll remember it for quite some time. Why do we forget? Usually it's encoding failure. So the inability to recall specific information because of insufficient encoding of the information for storage in long-term memory. Why do you forget a person's name 2 minutes after you meet them? It's momentarily stored in short-term memory, so you've got about 20 seconds to work with it if you decide to work with it. But you never encoded it into long-term memory because the conversation continued. Hi, I'm Travis, nice to meet you. Oh, hey Travis, what's going on? What do you do? I'm a teacher, blah, blah, blah. And we talk for 5 minutes, never saying each other's names ever again. And then at the end of it, they politely say, hey, what was your name again? And I go, Travis. And then I never talk to them again because they forgot my name. Absent-mindedness occurs because you don't pay enough attention to a bit of information at the time when you should be encoding it. So your attention might have been divided. On which aisle you parked your car at the airport or Walmart or Target or whatever. Because you were thinking about being on time for your flight or what you were going to get inside. So then we have this thing called perspective memory, and that is so hard. That's a difficult thing for me to do, is to remember to do something in the future. The problem is, when you try to do this, you don't have a retrieval cue to say, oh, this is whenever I need to remember to do that thing that I thought about in the past. Remembering to do something in the future, when something needs to be remembered rather than what? So this is due to retrieval cue failure, inability to recall memory because of missing or inadequate retrieval cues. All right. The penny memory test. Some money.
Young money, cash money.
Yes. words and numbers in which locations are on the front of a United States 1-cent coin? This should be easy because it was in the book, and I'm sure all of you read the book. But don't get out a penny. See if you can pick out the correct penny. All right, here we go. Which one is correct? How many pennies have you touched in your life? Right? You only pick up the ones that are heads up. So you should be able to do this. Which penny is correct? Does anybody know? I'll give you a hint. It's not on the bottom row. It's not on the top row. It's right here. 1990, good year. Cincinnati Reds won the World Series. Now, again, you've touched thousands of pennies in your life, but you never put it into your brain. Okay? Now you might be sitting at home right now saying, you know what, I got that right, Coach V. And you know what? I'll buy you a Tesla. Why do we forget? Decay theory, the view that forgetting is due to normal metabolic processes that occur in the brain over time. It is, again, use it or lose it. If you do not use it, you will lose it. I mean, that's like me in math. Am I the best person at math? No, I'm not. I haven't had a math class since 2003. I have not actively practiced the skill of math since then. Do I know how to do the simple stuff? Sure. But, if you throw X's and Y's at me right now, it's going to be difficult for that to come back. Because again, I took a math class when I was a freshman in college. I barely went to class then. I have no idea. Well, I went for tests and that's it. I can't do any, you throw some difficult algebra at me, I wouldn't be able to even think about it. Because I haven't used it. It's gone. So memory trace is the distinct structural or chemical change in the brain. That is the neural connection. That is what we would call a memory. It would be a memory trace. So we forget memories because we don't use them and they fade away over time as a matter of a normal brain process. It's just, okay, well, this might be used for other information later. This happens because the memory is not refreshed by rehearsal. However, studies have shown that memory stabilizes and changes very little over time. It's just getting it back out. All right, the rate of forgetting actually decreases over time. We just looked through the forgetting curve, Hermann Ebbinghaus. Have contemporary memory researchers abandoned decay theory? No, not completely. They believe that it does contribute to forgetting. All right, we've also seen this before on our free response that we did, but interference theory. The theory that forgetting is caused by one memory competing or replacing another. So we have retroactive